Díomh agus fáilte ríomh go brain ramblings. So I've just kind of caught up on watching my previous video, which will already be up. And yeah, like looking back on it, like there's not a lot else I could say about secondary school and primary school and things like that, um, except, thank you to the people that were there that were supporting me and, didn't make a big deal out of coming out, and all these, extra people that just may not have said anything negative, but didn't say anything. Sorry, may not have said anything positive, but definitely didn't say anything negative either. All of these things are that little bit more helpful. And as I said, uh, it's such a difficult time particularly in teen years and things like that, where you're setting a foundation for how you're going to feel and how you're going to know yourself and be to everyone else for years and years and years, your life to come, because I do think you constantly kind of reinvent yourself slightly with every new experience. And with that all being said, like I went into a post leaving cert course, which is kind of a pre-college uni course to get extra credits, but also do other shorter term courses. So I had two choices that I wanted to do. One was going to be computer software development, and the other one was outdoor adventure management, because everyone who knows me I am an outdoorsy person. As luck would have it, or not, whichever way you want to look at it, but as luck would have it, I was late applying for both of the courses, and my application kind of didn't get through to, certainly to the outdoor course. I don't know what happened to the computer software course, because I never set the interview for it. So I was the last person to be interviewed. I'd been sat outside the interview room for outdoor adventure management for the majority of the day, really. So I had the interview for that. Went really well. I knew two of the interviewers, which is always nice. It's, that little bit easier. Subsequently, most recent interviews, it maybe isn't the nicest thing knowing who's interviewing you. It takes a lot of formality out of it. But yeah, another story. So I did the course, and I was probably maybe a quarter of the way into my first year. To set the scene, on Thursdays and Fridays, basically, we had 3 days of outdoor classes, doing hiking or kayaking or swimming or sailing or windsurfing, and then 2 days of indoor classes. So it was a Friday. We were in Gibney's in Malahide. It's about, probably, we'll say 3 or 4, 6 months, maybe max, into my first year. And we were in Gibney's having food, having pints, having chats, all these kinds of things. And yeah, I hadn't come out, but, I also didn't feel the need to come out. The space was kind of just there. Didn't really matter whether or not I was. There was an out third year that I was aware of, because the third years were teaching the first years in the different sports, particularly out in Malahide. And I don't know whether one of them caught me looking at somebody for a long time, at multiple times, particularly on that day. But the tell me more about yourself questions come up and get into conversation, and I came out, and it was a case of, that's cool, that's fine, that's, how did you know all of these things, information I would have imparted to you in the previous video, and it was fine. It wasn't an issue. But my point is, I was in control of it. I also had ways of presenting. I had the opportunities to present different aspects of myself. So the outdoorsy person, the crap windsurfer that I was in first year, a kayaking fan, mediocre sailor, better at sailing than windsurfing. Um, you know, different music that I liked or films that I liked, what got me into the course, all these things. Presenting that element of myself, not completely reinvent, but certainly explore and explain different aspects. And that's typically what a lot of people will say about college is they get to explore who they are and present different elements of themselves to the world and find what they like. And that's great. That's certainly what college should be about, as well as obviously getting your degree and passing exams and all these kinds of things. But, it still should be a thing in school, in primary and secondary school, where you can just present elements of yourself. But anyway, I digress. So going through college, certainly through the outdoor adventure course for the 2 years that I did out of 3, it didn't become an issue, you know. I think it was still a thing that, people's comfort around each other wasn't terribly big, but we weren't uncomfortable around each other. So we'd talk about everything, we'd speak about everything, we'd ask questions and things like that. Changing rooms was still, most of us walked around in our underwear and showered in underwear and things like that, and kind of going, okay, if that's the way things are going. But at the same point, I wasn't going to be parading myself around the changing room. I still was quite kind of young, self-conscious, not terribly comfortable with all these kinds of things. But it wasn't. It was a lot freer than being in secondary school. Yeah, but like college, it wasn't too big of an issue. Thankfully, we had conversations, but it was never kind of those kind of confrontational questions or kind of going, well, don't look at me, don't try and come on to me kind of things. It wasn't anything like that. It was also kind of initial tentative steps into the gay scene, which I may talk about in another video, depending on how, because it's 7 minutes now. I will make a separate video for the gay scene. But yeah, it was a place where I really just kind of put it out there and then never really spoke about it again until maybe a conversation once in a blue moon over a couple of drinks at night after a day's activities or whatever it is, came up. It was more, okay, well, we're going windsurfing today. I have to get my weather forecast, have to get wind directions, speeds, figure out the course, figure out how to rig my boat, rig my windsurfing sail, or whatever it is. And that was the thing. It was just, aside from the moments it was spoken about, there was a whole heap of other stuff to be working on, and I think that was okay for me. That was enough to kind of just say, yeah. And then just learning to work with people. Learning to work with people is a big thing for college, and particularly in the course that I was doing, there was a lot of group assignments and things like that to, encourage teamwork, but also figure out how we work individually and how we fit into parts of teams. So there's a lot of self-identification and reflection about other elements of myself, which was really interesting. But yeah, Shackleton, which is the nickname of the outdoor adventure course that I was doing after obviously the Explorer, was really kind of my first way of saying I'm gay. There's no hopes of relationships or anything like that. That's going to be another video in and of itself, but another 10-minute slice of my mind. Check out Poz Vibe's podcast. I've listened to both their episodes today back to back, and I'm halfway through episode 1 again because that's just the way it seemed to roll. I'll leave a link to it, and shout out to Robbie and Veda, because just certainly the second podcast, got into the meat and bones of it all. But yeah, check it out. If I've said podcasts are kind of, really inspiring me, they're getting me through. So yeah, if I have any other good ones, I'll leave them in a link. But Poz Vibes podcast. Gur míle agat agus slán go fóill.